Uh, Wonderful class like always. So Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's edition of Daily Wisdom from Bhagavad Gita. It's a new week. Always excited to be back. So let's get started. A very warm welcome to all of you once again. And let me share my screen and we will get underway by invoking the blessings of God and Guru. Our opening prayer. So give me a sec. Share my screen. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, Nitin.
Okay. All right. We'll get started then with our opening prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwaraha, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Okay, so Radhe Radhe, good morning, good evening to all of you. Let's get started. So as part of our Soul Soup segment, we've been talking about anger, greed, and we established that relationship that both anger and greed, they're the progeny of the same mother. And who's the mother? Desire. This is where we had come till last week. And we also said that when we fulfill desire, there are two outcomes to a desire. Either you fulfill it or you don't. So when you fulfill it, you are further away from the bliss that you were seeking. This is counterintuitive. We think by fulfilling the desire, we'll get closer to the bliss, but it doesn't work that way. And when we don't, actually, that takes us closer to the inner bliss of soul. This is counterintuitive, and that's what we continue to unravel the secret around it by going through the teachings of our scriptures and Bhagavad Gita. And that's what reasons why we are one of the reasons why we are subscribing to this divine knowledge. So let's continue to build this link. Now, why do different people desire different things? It's not that everybody's desiring something similar, right? Um, Now somebody might be mind might be going automatically towards tea, and somebody's mind might be going towards cricket, right? And somebody's mind might be going towards their child. So different people are minds are going towards different direction. What causes this variety of cravings? Right? We have to think about it. What causes this? Now, one person is attached to the prestige so much that that person is willing to give up 15 lectures a day to get elected. Right? When the president elections happen, you see how motivated they are. However many lectures are needed, a lot of time commitment, a lot of preparation is needed, but they're willing to take that on. And then some person, they desire money so much that they are willing to uh, they're willing to neglect their family for it as well. That is also desire, right? And then the third person, they're willing to sacrifice all their wealth on somebody whom they really love in life. So different people have different cravings around it. Now, where does this desire originate from? The answer is that when our mind is attached to something, we experience a desire for it. When our mind is attached to something, there's a attachment is the melody here. Now, the cause of desire is attachment, and the mind is a frequent visitor to things and people it is most devoted to. Now, if say you want to know your attachment, the easiest way to know about it is to look at your credit card bills. Okay, wherever that is going, that is where your attachment is. Okay, that's a good way to know where your attachment is if you look at your credit card bills. Now, if one is attached to alcohol, the desire for alcohol will come frequently to the mind. If one is attached to cigarettes, then the thoughts of pleasure of smoking cigarettes will continue to flow in the mind. This is how the mind works. And so the link from here, where the desire is stemming from is attachment, as we've spoken about. Now, this may seem to go against common sense. It would be logical to think that when we desire something, we are attracted towards its intrinsic um, properties, right? You love something in something, and that's what gets you enamored towards that particular thing. That's what the logical or common sense would tell you, right? So we've spoken about now different people are desiring different things, right? Their minds will go to that direction automatically. And then if you think through common sense, you would think that the intrinsic qualities of an object would take your mind towards it. Is it really true? Right? We have figured out why different people desire different things. Is the intrinsic properties of an object is what that is making us desire it? Anybody knows that? Is there anything in particular thing that is making us desire it? Okay. Yes, Anta? Yes or no?
No.
Okay. Yeah, let's build on that. So yes, the answer is no. For example, if you think about people whose mind is attached to alcohol, it is foul smelling and obnoxious. The very first time anybody tastes it, they don't like it. Okay. And yet the same smell is so enticing to somebody who's alcoholic. When they pass by a pub, they start swaying from side to side. That itself is very intoxicating to them. And the odor of alcohol, which makes one to vomit, can spark somebody's cravings on the other side. The difference is because of the attachment. The alcoholic's craving is coming from the attachment to alcohol. Let's talk about cigarettes, smoking to cigarettes. Is it pleasant or filthy? It is, right? It's very, I mean, if somebody has done that, you don't do that, right? So you may say it is awful. Then it prompts you to just turn around and go the other way. Then why is it so attractive to an addict? That is because their own attachment to it. It is not the intrinsic property of the cigarettes, but the attachment within the addict's mind that is creating a craving for them. It was so attractive that everybody should have gotten attracted towards it, right? So it doesn't work that way. And this is the key thing. If you think deeply about it, it is our attachment to an object, not its intrinsic properties that create desire for it. It's a very important concept to understand. I'll give you a story about it. There was a mother who lost her child in a fair. So she went to the police station and to report a complaint about her missing child. And policemen said that there have been reports of 4 and 5 missing, lost and found kids. Let me take you to them. And which kid is yours? Okay, for you to figure it out. So he takes the mother to the kids, and mother looks at all of them and she says, none of these are my child. So then the policeman says, you saw so many beautiful children. Why don't you pick any of them and hug them hug any one of them with maternal affection like you would do? Why are you hankering for your child alone? Mother replied, Mr. Policeman, that you will never understand the heart of her mother. I'll only be able to sleep after I see my little child. Okay. So it's not the intrinsic property. That mother may see more beautiful child, but since her attachment is not there, the desire to hug that person or to desire to have that person will not stem at all. So now the link is established. The root cause of greed and anger is desire, and the root cause of desire is attachment. And what is the root cause for attachment is something we are going to discuss tomorrow. So I hope you understand the flow here. So we'll continue to build on that, but this is an important concept takeaway from today, that it is not the intrinsic property of a particular thing that make you crave for it. It is your attachment to it. If that was the case, then looking at the same car or the same house or the same food, everybody should get an equal pleasure. It doesn't work that way. Only if you're attached to it will you derive pleasure out of it. Somebody else might feel, completely opposite looking at the same thing, and somebody else might be completely neutral. So your perspective or how you look at that particular thing dictates um, what that whether you desire for it or not. It's born out of attachment and not anything else. Okay, I hope you understand that. Now let's move on. So it is our attachment to an object, not its intrinsic properties, which create desire for it. Now let's move on to our shloka. Now it's a pretty big long tongue twister, so you want to take some bit of a time, and then I'm going to recite it, and you're welcome to follow along. तद्बुद्ध्यास्तद् आत्मानस् तन्निष्ठा तत्परायणः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः. Okay, take a few hands. Who's brave enough to? All right, I see a few brave people. 3 hands will take. Let's freeze it at 3. Go ahead, Sham.
Shamji.
राधे राधे तद्बुद्ध्यस्तददात्मानस्तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृतं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषः. राधे राधे.
Shamji, Radhe Radhe. Let's take Sandhya, go ahead.
Okay. तद्बुद्ध्यस्तद् आत्मानस्तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः.
Nice. Okay, Manishi, go ahead, please.
राधे राधे मनीष जी.
Radhe Radhe Sanjay ji, Nitin ji, hey everyone, I'll try it. Tad buddhayas tad atmanas tannistad tad parayanaha gacchantya punararvrittam nirdutta kalmashaha.
Very nice, thank you. We'll take one more hand, maybe. Yes. Okay, Arunji, go ahead. You've put your camera on. Idiot. Yes, go ahead, Arun.
राधे राधे.
What's the line? Is it okay? Radhe Radhe. तद्बुद्धयस्तद् आत्मानस् तद्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिन् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः.
Very nice, thank you. All right, Riyaji, real quick, you can do as well, and then I'll try to make up for it.
राधे राधे. रिया जी, please go
Thank,
ahead.
thank you. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe.
तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मनस् तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मनः तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिम् ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः.
Very nice, thank you. All right, so let's get started. So, in shloka, in this, Lord Krishna is saying, those whose intellect is fixed in God, who are completely absorbed in God, with firm faith in Him as the supreme goal, such persons quickly reach the state from which there is no return, their sins having been dispelled by the light of knowledge. A lot of stuff is packed in the shloka, so we'll go step by step. So we'll talk about the 4 friends you need on this journey. The 4 friends. We'll introduce the first one today in more detail, and we'll continue to build on it for the rest of the week as well. Okay, so here you see Bhagavad Gita. This is typically the path people take, so congratulate yourself. You are unlocking the wisdom right now. Doesn't go with majority, and is, Bahumat is not necessarily Shreshtmat. Popular opinion is not necessarily the best opinion. So we should feel good about that. We are subscribing to the opinion of Lord Krishna. I think in one of the shlokas, in between Lord Krishna and few shlokas, he has aired his opinion. And if he's giving his opinion, it better has to be taken seriously, I would imagine, right? He's humble enough to say, in my opinion. That's how he keeps on saying during the course of Bhagavad Gita, as you would see. We'll get to those shlokas. But yeah, popular opinion is not necessarily, and we are here going by the opinion of Lord Krishna, so which is a good insurance policy for your spiritual journey. Now let's get started. Suffering. Now, here's a patient, goes to a doctor, and he says, "Doctor, I am in pain." So doctor says, "Okay, let me give you medicine for it." And then he says, "I won't take the medicine until I know reason for the pain." So doctor says, "Sure. Here you can read all about the causes of pain. But in the meantime, I'm starting you on a high dose of medicine." But he says, "But I will not take the medicine until I know why I'm in pain." Now, what would we tell this guy? What is going on here? See, you go to doctor, you need a fix for that, whatever the problem is happening. But do you really bother about the cause of that? But this apparently this guy is hung up on that. Okay, he's not going to take medicine. So who's going to be the loser here? Anyways, just to get the thought going, we'll continue on that. Now let's look at the ignorance etiology, and we'll build on this. Etiology means investigating the cause or reason for a disease or a condition, where you go to the cause of it. And therapy refers to the treatment, the prognosis itself. Now, this investigation and treatment, they can occur simultaneously. You start taking the medicine while we continue to figure out the root cause for it as well, right? It can go hand in hand, has to be a sequential process as such. And you can begin with the treatment without really knowing the cause. Now, it may give you symptomatic relief or whatever, but at least it will give you relief, right? Until doctor can figure out what is the root cause for it. But the therapy can pretty much begin, as a common sense would tell, right? Now, here's a story of it. There's a person is stranded, and he regains consciousness in the middle of the sea. You see, the person is stuck in the middle of the sea. Doesn't look too nice, right? What's going on with him? Now, he's, of course, scared that he's going to die without anybody knowing what happened to this person. Just then, a boat approaches from far. You see, the boat is coming. So the boat comes, and the boat comes closer. The boatman sees and offers to help on board. Right? He says, "Give your hand, give your hand, give your hand." Right? So this guy refuses. Now, why does he refuse? No, he refuses because he's a businessman. He's saying give, give, give. So he's not used to give. This guy says take, 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 and then he may give your hand. But even then he doesn't. Why? Because he says that I will only get on the boat after you help my question. Why did I get in the middle of this ocean? Okay, now he's questioning that part. Does it make sense? He's in the middle of an ocean, needs help. Does it matter? Should not, right? At this point, first let's take the help and then worry about this question, right? So now this guy is wasting time, first trying to figure out why he got into the ocean, and then he may get too tired and may drown, right? So Maharaji used to say that do kirtan, hear lectures. When you do, they're very important. And it's like hearing the theory. When all the knowledge that we are assimilating here, it's the theory aspect of it, right? And the true assimilation, when it happens, then it'll spike your interest in kirtans as well. And kirtans is like doing practical, because now you're trying to take your mind to God. Now, there's no point in theory if you're not doing any practical at all, right? And if you don't know the theory, chances are high we can experience pitfalls from practical. So both are important. Having said that, there would be times that some questions you may not get an answer to, right? So just suspend those questions for now. In due course of time, either the answers will come to you, or you at least, whatever is making sense, utilize it and continue to progress on this path. And there will be some questions that will get answered only when we become God realized, because we cannot crack God's head. Why is God did that? Or why does God do this? There are a lot of such speculative questions that come, right? Or if we start asking the question, why am I here to begin with? That is also one of the questions, right? which is kind of answered that we have always been facing Maya, but this question, at least to my satisfaction, has never gotten answered, because the time conception that we have is there must have been some beginning, right? We must have been perfect and something happened. And what is that something that happened? So some of the questions would get answered. So rather than worrying about why did we get in this ocean, if you're getting a hand in form of the spiritual knowledge, we need to cling on to that and save ourselves. And of course, in due course of time, things will start becoming clearer and clearer. So when we continue understanding the cause of our suffering, we can still work on the therapy and practically apply the knowledge we are learning as well. So that should not stop us from not only trying to understand this knowledge, but also apply it. It's not like we need to know the whole theory, then only we'll start the application part of it, right? So going back to the same example, when person says, "Doctor, I'm in pain," and experiencing a lot of misery. Now, what is this misery? This is an analogy for the misery that we all of us are experiencing. Okay, if this is news for you, then let me break it out again once more to you. Janma mrityu jara vyadhi dukkha dosha anudarshanam. 13.9 talks about this. What is this fourfold misery? Birth, old age, disease, old age, and disease, and death. These four are the miseries we all have to go through. Birth is painful, death is painful. We cannot avoid diseases. You can live responsibly. You can delay the inevitable, right? And old age is inevitable as well, right? So these are the fourfold misery that we all need to get out of. Buddha, right? Buddha's horoscope, when it was showed people, it was told to his father, don't show him, the true picture of the world, otherwise he will become a vairagi and he may even leave home. So they protected him throughout his life until one day he himself saw, an old man, a sick man, and the moment he saw that, he said, "Oh, this thing is going to happen to me as well." And then that got him thinking so much. So he did chintan, which we are going to talk about. He did not do chinta. Chinta is, oh my God, what happened? What do I do now? He did chintan. He actually utilized that thought process to say that, okay, I'm going to get to the root of all this and get out of it. Okay, so that misery aspect of it should, if it troubles us, if let's say we are not happy with our state in this world, right? Some anxiety is going on, something is not working out, either on the financial side or family side or relationship side or anything. And let's get to the root cause of it and try to eradicate the problem itself. Right? How long we will continue to cure the symptom and hope that one day the problem will go away by itself? That is wishful thinking. That's just playing with ourselves, right? So, from that sense, it goes to a doctor and is asking about, telling about the misery. And then the doctor, we know who's the doctor in this case, right? Doctor is God's words, which will flow to us via Guru, right? It says you are suffering from ignorance. Our disease is ignorance. It's only because of ignorance, these four things we have to experience, and it comes across as a pain to us. And we are rotating in this cycle of birth and death, lifetime after lifetime after time, and creating more debts with each other, karmic debts here and there, right? Ignorance. So the prognosis for that is, what is ignorance? Now somebody says, I would like to understand this disease by gaining knowledge about it. Now, ignorance, how you get knowledge about ignorance? Okay, that is how you will cure it, get it cured. Now he says, this is where you can read about it. Of course, we have the example of scriptures. But in the meantime, I'm starting you on a high dose of bhakti. So take those pills. Now this is the pill we all need. Any problem you have, it's a silver bullet. Silver bullet. Now you say, no, I have done bhakti, it doesn't work. Okay, I've taken the dose of bhakti, I tried it, but it does not work. You know what do you need to do? You need to double the dose, because this is the only dose. Okay, there's no other dose. And this is the only cure to all the afflictions that our head has. You need to double the dose and stay patient. It may not initially. It's like, that's a beautiful example Maharaji gives, that if somebody is suffering from jaundice, you give them sugarcane juice. So when you give them sugarcane juice, you say, how does it taste? They say, it tastes bitter. Now, is this the problem with the sugarcane juice? No, it's the problem with the senses. Because they're suffering from jaundice, it will taste bitter. Now, what is the cure? Cure is you keep drinking sugarcane juice And what will happen? It will not only cure that bitter taste, but also the jaundice will also get cured, and it will reveal its true taste as well, which is sweet in due course of time. So that is how bhakti works. There is no other plan B, plan C, or plan D. Bhakti is the only way. Okay, so if you are going through any kind of a turmoil or any kind of a thought process where you're thinking things are not working out around you, your mind is not cooperating, there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of uncertainty, this is the pill. Okay, there's no other pill. Now, in a way, it's good news. In a way, it's a bad news. Good news is that it's readily available. Bad news is that because of our conditioned state, your mind will keep you away from it. It'll keep on making you, let me settle this down and then I'll do it. Let me settle that down and then I'll do it. I have time. Okay. Once this thing gets fixed, only if this thing gets sorted out, this is all your excuses. Your conditioned state will keep making for you and keep you away from this pill, right? Because our sanskars and the conditioned state is so powerful that it will keep you away from it. And that is why there's a beautiful bhajan of Maharaj Ji also, right? Likhan Walya. See that put, do something such that in my destiny, my feet take me to a temple or my mind takes me to God, right? So doesn't work such so easily because mind will repel, your feet will repel, and our conditioned state will not let it happen so easily. Okay, this is the thing. But yeah, pill is available, readily available to everybody to start taking benefit from. Now, once we have begun imbibing the knowledge and practicing devotion, then what basically? So Lord Krishna is saying only when we make this perfect knowledge and devotion the sole focus of our meditation, and we need to channelize the four friends. Let me introduce the four friends now. The four faculties are the four friends that we need to dovetail towards it or take assistance from. Like Krishna had friends, right? Mansukh, Dhansukh, Madhumangal, Shri Dama. Similarly, we need some friends here on this journey. And it is interesting to know, we will do one friend maybe a day or maybe in a couple of sessions, we'll try to wrap it up. But today we'll introduce the first friend. Why we need all of them. Why one alone will not suffice. We'll talk about that as well. The first one is Buddhya, intellect. You need your intellect to support you. So in Shloka, Tad Buddhya means the intellect is directed towards God. Second one is Atmana, mind. That means ethereal heart, basically mind and intellect is only absorbed in God, mind also. Okay. It's pretty interesting. The boss of your mind is intellect, but mind is also needed. We'll talk about that too. Nishtha, firm faith. Tan Nishtha means the intellect has firm faith in God. And the fourth one is Parayana, object of focus. Striving after God as the supreme goal and refuge. These four friends you would need on this path. Okay, so let's talk about the first one today. Now, the spiritual life begins with intelligence. It takes a bit of intelligence, right, to even ask the basic questions. And how many people would even ask this question? It's like, okay, everything is happening, world is moving, we have to run about, do this, make a living, earn money, enjoy life. But it starts with a bit of an intelligence where you have a bit of a spark and start asking some fundamental questions in life, right? Who am I? How can I find true happiness? Do you even know we haven't, this is a futile chase where after that we have not found the happiness even after such a long time. Uh, is it truly futile? And what can I do to attain that? And to begin with, who am I? That question itself is, we can't get ourselves to think about that at all in depth actually. And a lot of philosophers has pondered upon it as well, right from Socrates, and it just continues to be a question, who am I? So it takes a bit of intelligence to get started with it. And then we start acknowledge certain realization about our existence that, material happiness, especially when we go to a hospital or a mortuary, when we see the reality of life, then we try, start some kind of a detachment starts develop, and we see material happiness is all temporary. It's all mohamaya. This is a very common word which is used everywhere, but they continue to do the same thing. And there has to be richer, deeper, and permanent happiness somewhere out there. People have wanted upon this question as well. Where can we find that elusive happiness that everybody's after? And who can find it, and how can we find that? And then we start learning about, we turn towards religion, we start subscribing to spiritual understanding, knowledge. Then we start understanding the deeper secrets, like when if you have come to Bhagavad Gita and chapter 2, Sankhya Yoga starts with explaining, first let's understand who are we. Are not the body, we are not the mind, we are the soul. And God is the supreme enjoyer, ultimate source of permanent happiness. Now we all are seeking happiness. We all are seeking bliss, and God is bliss. Scriptures tell us God is bliss. God has bliss, means God is bliss. So everybody is seeking God, whether you believe in God or not, whether you are a theist or an atheist, doesn't matter. You all are seeking God only. Okay, it's just a matter of time before we wake up to that fact. But we all are seeking God because God is bliss, right? And we all are seeking bliss. Even an atheist, you can go and say, are you seeking misery? Say, no, I'm seeking happiness. Okay, then you're seeking God. You're just calling it with a different name here. Now, despite learning to this, sense objects will continue to tempt us. This thing continues for our own sense gratification, and that's where the intellect, the first friend that we're talking about, comes in. Okay, this is where we need the help of our first friend, where we put a question mark on the pleasures that we are trying to seek through this material world. Really, is it what my game plan in life is? Same input, same output, right? If you're not going to change the variables, how can you expect that the outcome is going to change, right? Even in material world, in real world, we see when we put a same input, the output is also same. But we keep on doing the same thing with the hope that this time I'll get lucky. Life is not like playing a Russian roulette, right? You hope one day you'll strike gold. It doesn't work like that. And this is where the intellect comes in, where which is currently directed towards sense gratification, that I'm going to enjoy the happiness or extract happiness towards the more punk, which is God himself, right? He loves this. And then when we channel our intellect through understanding and repeated philosophical contemplation of, this is how we start making spiritual progress. Now, this entails a 3-step process. Okay, let's talk about that. How do we arm our intellect? What is the 3-step process? By the way, this is going to be a practical tool for us as well, which I'll let Dhruval talk about later. But let me introduce that a little bit. It's a 3-step process, Shravan, where you acquire knowledge through your senses. We are acquiring knowledge throughout the day, through our eyes, ears, and all. So first step is what we are doing right now is also Shravan. We are hearing the knowledge and we are trying to understand it. Right? What does it mean? What does this principle mean? How can I? So this is the first part of it. Then the second is Manan, Chintan. After you have heard it, it's important to ruminate over it as well, because just hearing will not suffice. It's not the Shuddhikaran of ears alone. That, wow, something good I heard today. Now something good is going to happen. Doesn't work that way. It has to be suffixed with deeper contemplation where your mind is involved. Okay, first it was senses, now your mind is involved as well. And then nididhyasana is the third step, where your intellect, you have done sufficient contemplation for your intellect to decide, yes, this is it. Okay, so this 3-step process is how you arm your intellect. Okay, it all starts with hearing, ruminating over it. Like cow has 6 stomachs, 4, I don't know, 6, I guess. I'm not a biology professor, so what does it do? It chews and takes it, and then again chews, and then again takes it, again chews. It keeps on ruminating over it, and that is the contemplation part of it, until it becomes firmly entrenched in our intellect, where you don't need any empirical proof for that. You just believe this is what it is. And our scriptures say that. So here you read, here you are, trying. It's like trying a recipe. You read about baking, and now you're experimenting. You're thinking about it. This is what I can do, plus, minus, and all that stuff, and tweaking it and all that stuff. And finally, you enjoy the recipe because you are putting it into practice as well. Okay, because your intellect is convinced. And our scriptures say, Shrute Shatgunam Vidyan Mananadapi Nididhyasan Lakshgunam Anantam Nirvikalpam. What it basically says is that 100 times superior from Shravan is your Manan Chintan. Okay, of course, it starts with Shravan, but it is 100 times more powerful when you start ruminating over it. And even 100 times superior is when you start implementing it and make a firm decision around it. Okay, so this is how the process unfolds. Sandhya, you had a question? Or somebody has asked a question on chat?
Yeah, I mean, in the chat, Ganpriya ji has requested if you could go to the previous slide. I think she wants to take a screenshot.
Okay.
Yeah, this one.
Hope you got your screenshot for this. Now let's move on. So this is how we arm our intellect. Okay. This is going to be a practical tool as well. Dhruv is going to talk more, but I just introduced that. Now, this will have a bit of a discussion before we move there. Now, intellect is powered by these two W's. The intellect aspect of it is there are two W's that power it. What are those? Let's look at those. One is the willpower, and the other one is the Y power. Okay, these two power our intellect. So when you decide something, we've spoken about it. Prefrontal cortex, yeah, we've spoken about that. That enables us to exercise our willpower over such things that we want to do. So our intellect or our mind has that faculty which enables us to practice willpower, where we forcibly restrain ourselves to do things which we think are in accordance with our values or which are beneficial for us. But it is like a muscle that gets expended throughout the day, and it is a finite resource. Higher than that is called a Y power, and both of these are used by our intellect. And Y power is even stronger than willpower because your willpower may not cooperate, but if your Y power is very strong around a particular thing, your mind will cooperate and you will end up doing that. That is what our intellect uses. Y power is something that I will do it because I absolutely must do it. Okay, you just make it non-negotiable for yourself. Yeah? Could be sitting in an exam, it could be that important meeting, it could be that presentation that you want, even though you're feeling sleepy and your mind is not cooperating, you're very tired, still you end up doing that, right? So when your Y power is there, it is a great resource to have in addition to your willpower to get something accomplished. Now, that brings us to the question, why am I doing it is important, right? Now, spirituality part of it, one is, yeah, it is nice to do. It's a good investment of time. At least we learned something new. That aspect is there. Um, and then you may exercise your willpower around it. Like say if you, when you have choices, let's say you have to spend time with some socialization and stuff like that, and you say, no, I'm going to resist that temptation and listen to Swamiji's lecture or maybe read a book or do something, right? So that is how you can forcibly restrain it. But let's say you're intellectually convinced that human birth is pretty precious and time is running by, then you don't even need to exercise that. It will come in very naturally to you. It's like, yeah, I have to do that. Like sportsmen, they go through the grinds every day. If you look at some of the high performing athletes, they do go through those monotonous grinds every day, whatever it takes. Even if it's scorching heat, they will go out and do those drills. Why? Because their Y power is strong. They know that they have a limited shelf life as a sportsman and they want to make the most of it during that time, and they really want to excel in that. So that Y power is strong, then you don't really need to exert, of course willpower is needed there, but Y power becomes even more stronger. When you have a strong reason behind doing something, then it becomes easy. Now the point here is maybe a little bit of discussion before we move to our next segment from Dhruv. Is intellectual conviction enough to progress spiritually? Now you're convinced human life is important. This is a golden shot at glory or God realization. Is that enough? Yeah, Sandhya. Get the conversation going.
So regarding this question, I feel that it's not enough. Action is also important. Like once our intellect is convinced, we need to get that understanding into action mode, start putting efforts towards it. But I also had a question. Is it possible to exert willpower if we do not have the Y power?
Is it possible to exert willpower if we don't have the Y power? I think even in that case, you have a reason for exerting your willpower as well, right? You have a reason to, why would you exert your willpower otherwise?
That's what. So without Y power, like without reason, we will not be able to exert
But
willpower.
I think there's a stronger conviction. Like I'll have to think through a particular example. Maybe somebody can think through and pose that
Like
example.
I have a
Then your
general.
willpower will go away and your Y power will kick in, right? There would be a tipping point. And that's where a stronger Y would help in that case. Willpower
Like
would be
suppose
abstain. It's like abstaining yourself from, it is not sunk in at that level. You can abstain yourself from something, right? Let's say, for example, you want to abstain yourself from sweets. You're going to deny yourself because you want to strengthen your senses, right? Or mind rather. But let's say you're just doing that as a discipline, austerity, right? Just want to, what do you call that? Strengthen your muscles in your head and say, okay, I'm going to deny myself and see how far it takes me. So you could be exerting willpower without a strong why. But then you can supplement if, let's say, you have the knowledge also, it is not needed. I don't need to deny it because eventually, I need to, whatever the goal might be, some people do that so that they continue to stay healthy or to deny their senses not once, but it's a ongoing process for them. But when a strong why is there, then exerting that willpower becomes easy. So willpower also requires a bit of a why, I would guess, but not that strong, where beyond a point you will say, okay, it's okay. Let me just let go of it at this
like
time.
for example, if someone is not convinced that eating sweet is bad,
Yeah, eating sweet is bad. Yeah, they're not convinced, but they're just trying it to see how long they can
why would they
deny
like
their
even
senses.
try at the first place?
I don't know. Ask somebody. There must be somebody in this world who would. Okay. Yes,
Okay.
Tejas.
Radhe Radhe Tejasvi.
Radhe Radhe. So if you are doing something, if you don't have the Y power, right, you will just do it for the sake that okay, everyone else is doing it, and you're just doing because you want to be a part of the herd.
Awesome.
If you have the Y power, right, you will internalize it, and even next time when the opportunity comes, your brain will be automatically hardwired to do it because you've already internalized it. You've also convinced yourself why you're doing it. So I think that's the difference. Just piggybacking on what Sanjay ji asked. So I think that's my answer to it, I would say.
Yeah, I don't. I think there's a point where you would always have a why around your willpower,
Hmm.
but yeah, that why is that everybody else is doing it. So you can say that that is also a why in that case, right? But that's not a strong enough reason because you are not convinced intellectually
Right.
that it is good for you. You might be doing it, for some other reason. So I don't
Right.
know.
And everyone's why power is different, right? Everyone's why is different. So unless you internalize the why, then the will follow it. Just my this is
True.
what I thought about that question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is the subtle nuances of how our brain works, how we
Hmm.
go about doing things. And it's
Hmm.
interesting to understand our psychology. See, spirituality is about getting to know thyself. And there's no, I mean, so many things are happening inside this machinery, and we are making decisions on the go. And sometimes we are not even knowing that we have the ability to make decisions, simply going with the flow, right? So that is
Hmm.
where this knowledge comes in handy. But the
Correct.
important question is just intellectually, yes, of course, it has to be supplemented with an action, like you said, Sandhya. But then let's say we are going to talk about four friends. Second one is the mind. Intellectually, you're convinced, but mind is not cooperating. Mind says, no, there is a pleasure here in this thing and all, right? So just having that intellectual resource is not good enough. You need the support of second friend, third friend, and fourth friend as well. We'll talk about mind tomorrow. All four are needed for us to continue to progress spiritually. And that's what Lord Krishna is saying as well.
And
And it,
also the why becomes the why becomes stronger when you see the result. Let's say you try something like not eat sweets, and when you actually internalize the why and you see the results, that becomes reinforces again, right? So that's the other part.
yeah, there's a feedback loop that can get
Right,
established there as well. Yep.
right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So I'll move on to the next person.
Yes.
Thank you, Tejasji. Samiranji, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. I think I just got reminded of why perspective when in 2013 when the IPL was going on, and there is a famous popular video of Virat Kohli when he says that I like when I came out of the washroom, I looked at myself and I thought that you can't look like this when if you want to be in the greatest list of the players.
Yeah.
Then he says that then and there everything I changed. I think that moment his why was very very clear that why he want to do that. Before that he was enjoying parties, drinking everything, but now we know where he is now.
True. See, this guy, good that you brought up that example. So I want to tell you, maybe that will help clarify this a little bit more. So I've heard his interview as well, and he said that, yeah, I understand that for me, he saw his picture, right, when he was scanning. He said he used to look very chubby and a little bulky, not ancient bulky, but a little chubby. So then he said that I'm going to do something to increase my endurance, and because I want to excel in this particular sport and I have a limited shelf life. I understand 35, 40 is usually when cricketers retire. They cannot go long. I mean, if unless you are Dhoni and playing IPL only. So then he resorted to, he made dietary changes and all the discipline, the kind of stamina, endurance that he has, it's at a different level altogether, right? He's the, what you call that, gold standard for fitness in Indian team, despite, he's 34 or 35 right now. And one of the, commentators, I think, Pakistani commentators, he was saying that the team, when they would, after the match, they would go out and have chole bhature and naan paneer and all that stuff. This guy would be munching chanas happily. Is he exerting willpower? Of course not. His why power is so strong that he does not even get tempted by all the delicacies around him. He knows what he's doing and why he's doing. So that might seem like an austerity to somebody, but then his why is so strong that he knows what he's doing. This is the diet he wants to take and not succumb to the temptations around, because he knows that what he's gaining out of it on the field when he's running between the wickets, or when he's the what you call the screws are turned on in a pressure match situation. That's when he knows that all these hard yards and the small changes, that adjustments that he has made in his life are actually paying him dividends. So that why is very strong around him, and that is how it helps. Thank you for bringing that, Samiran. Madhuchanda ji, real quick.
He was actually saying that my why was only to win for my team and be on the greatest side of the players.
Yeah, they want to excel in what they're doing, so which is a good why. Yes, Madhuji.
And actually, there are many comments in the chat as well. Everybody's reinforcing that why power is much more powerful than willpower. So,
Yep.
Madhu,
Yeah. Yes,
yeah,
Madhuji.
Madhuji, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, everybody. So regarding that why thread that we are talking about, like I would say that why not? Like why not? Like when I started on this spiritual journey, I had intellectually I was not convinced because I didn't have the knowledge, and why there was no why, but I was asking something and I was going around, and then the entry level requirements I felt was too high for me to enter. Because I am a non-veg, I eat non-vegetarian. So there was the first bar there. I thought that then I cannot enter here, and that is the reason I don't understand Bhagavad Gita or anything like any other would understand. Because I would go around reading everything, then I thought that I'm just getting knowledge and trying to show off that I read this, Radhakrishna, Aurobindo, everything, but then I'm not able to understand it really. But then when I came to these classes in JK Yoga and read Swami Mukundananji's, I started understanding a little bit. And then I came to know, okay, that entry requirement is not required. Slowly, many things just fall off, like the flower which is dried up, or the leaves in autumn. So I believed him, and then it slowly happened. So like Tejas ji and others, like they say, like we get the feedback. So when we can try with why not also sometimes, like you just move around and then find the way. It's like that sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good one. You brought up that vegetarian, non-vegetarian. I had a friend when I was studying here. I had a friend who, went to China, and he went to China, and then his his current wife at that time, he had a girlfriend, so she convinced him to give up meat eating. Okay, that shouldn't do that. So he said, fine, good enough, and he stopped eating it. So when we would go out, he actually turned vegan, completely vegan. Now on one of the get-togethers, I saw him enjoying a steak again. So I said, what happened? You had turned vegan. He said, yeah, it was a lot of, it took a lot of willpower actually to resist myself from doing that. And then I said, okay, you did well for 4 or 5 months, but what happened then? He said, then one day I just felt hungry. I said, yeah, that's a good reason. So he started again. And then there was another friend of mine. He was an American and he gave up. And I said, why did you give up? He said that when I read that Bhagavad Gita, I was reading, and he said the quote that Swamiji had written, I don't want to make my stomach a graveyard for animals. That struck him so much, but he gave up completely. So his vibe kicked in immediately. But for the other, the why had not kicked in. He was exerting his willpower because he was not intellectually yet convinced. And then he felt hungry one day. But this guy, even though he felt hungry, he gave it up for good. So that is the difference between willpower and why power, I guess. It has not sunk in at that level where it has resonated a chord or it has struck a chord with your value system or somewhere deep down. Maybe one more question and then I'll give it to Dhruvin and we can take the remaining hands. Just Pallaviji, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe Pallaviji.
Radhe Radhe. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe
So,
Pallavi.
yeah, I quickly wanted to say that great discussion going on, very interesting. So that's why I thought I'll add something. For willpower, I believe that it is very important to have that strong why. Why? Because if a person has been working on some kind of cruise control all the time throughout their life, to make that take a leap, to make that change, they definitely need that strong why. If they are not having any strong why for some reason, then they might be doing it for the sake of friend or something, but it can't go the long run. Like as your friend you gave example just now, that he gave up for his girlfriend meat, non-veg, but then one day he immediately took it up because inside his might be he was not having that strong
Why?
conviction that okay, yeah, that is strong why that he really wanted to leave the meat eating. So that is why I believe that a strong why is very important. But also, we need to pray to God to grant that strong willpower. Because of that, that energy is not going to come.
True.
That's what I wanted to
So
mention.
thank you, Pallaviji. Very nice. So there are two aspects to it. One is that from
Thank
a
you.
material standpoint, we can certainly thicken our prefrontal cortex. That ability is there. Every time you're going to deny your mind and your senses, you're going to thicken it. And on the other side, yes, we can pray to God that he makes this knowledge, wisdom, and a deeper realization so that it just clicks from within. We don't need external stimulus or some kind of convincing,
Mm-hmm.
but it comes from within. Because when
Yeah,
it comes
it
from
has to come from within. Yeah,
when it comes from within, it's all natural, spontaneous at that point. You don't need any
yeah.
conviction or any evidence around that.
Then it doesn't need kind of that austerity kind of thing.
Validation.
As you gave example of Virat Kohli also, that he was
True.
having chana
That
after that.
austerity is a delight for him. So that's all
It becomes part of life then.
true.
Yes.
Very true.
Thank you.
So same thing happens, right? When you're in the path of spirituality, people are thinking that you are denying your senses. Rather than going for a movie, you are doing Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, or Radhe Radhe, sitting in a kirtan. But they don't understand you're actually relishing. Nobody's punishing themselves. You're enjoying, you're relishing something, and that's why you're doing that. You're not denying your senses. You're giving it a higher taste. That's essentially what it is, or how it goes. Okay, Dhruv, I'll hand it over to you, and then Pratyusha and Lakshmiji will come back after Dhruv's quick spiel on this topic, because let him continue to build momentum on what we are talking about, so that we can also look at utilizing it as a practical tool for the week, which he's taken an initiative on, and he's going to create a thread as well, right? So go ahead, Dhruv, all yours. Dhruvil.
Um, Where is
Okay.
yeah. Please unmute your. I think you'll have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Radhe Radhe, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, Radhe Radhe, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity, firstly, and feel free to take it as much as you like. It's just an attempt. And
No, no, please.
thank you to Kashi and Nitinji for helping with the brainstorming and guidance on this. So I think last week we talked about Shloka 5.16 of Vidya, right? That was the main theme. So we'll talk about a practical tool to absorb Vidya. And it is going back to what I think Nitinji covered a few minutes ago about the three-step process of Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam. So let's start with Shravanam and a sort of practical example of how we can put this into effect, right? So we should like think like, okay, we've covered, let's say, up till 5.16. We can choose any shloka we like that at random from up till 5.16 by choice. So let's say you wanted to talk about or learn more about desire and attachment and how they are affecting greed. You could go to like 2.62, for example. Or you could also open the Bhagavad Gita app by Swamiji. I think it has a shloka of a day as well. So it'll automatically choose a shloka for you basically. And then once you've chosen it, I think you can easily read in divine knowledge like Pathanam, because the shloka in the Bhagavad Gita app has a really good, like the shloka is there, but there's also really good commentary, and you'll often find episode on YouTube about like Swamiji covering his discourse. So that's the guru's knowledge. And lastly, I think one thing that this again, I got a lot of this from Swamiji's video that Cash pointed me to, but the repetition over here is really important because it sort of helps you prevent the evaporation of knowledge. Because otherwise, we listen and then maybe even 1 hour later we forgot what we listened, right? So it's quite useful to repeat it. Once you've read it like thoroughly, you've digested a few of the words that are there. Now it's time to move to the next step, which is mananam. So that is the contemplation which happens with the mind. So you really want to deeply contemplate and ruminate over what you've heard. And again, over here, like in step one, the repetition can really help because it'll become a part of your sort of conscious awareness, the knowledge, and that's when it starts to become a little bit more useful. And this is something that, like the second part of this, something that I personally do, and I find it quite useful. So I try to like ask myself question that, okay, do I truly understand this? Like it's saying something, do I understand it? Because often it will build on what was there in the previous few shlokas, previous few chapters, right? So I will try to ask myself question, and many times, most times, I may not have the answer. So I think the Radha Krishna Bhakti app actually by Swamiji has this feature. It's like it's called Ask Swamiji. It's basically, I think it's like an AI that is trained on Swamiji's sort of teachings. I'm not really sure how it works, but it works really well. So I thought that was really, I find it really handy. And I try to do this. Like I ask a question. If I get an answer on the app, I'll go again deeper, ask a question, go deeper. I think that really helps. Like, an example is, what's the cause of anger? It's unfulfilled desire. What's the cause of desire? Attachment. And then what's the cause of attachment? And then you can go into contemplation and everything. Like, there's a whole chain. I think Nitinji is covering that in the Soul Soup segment, actually, right? So we'll get there eventually. But I thought that that feature was really helpful to sort of deeply contemplate what is being said. And the last part, which is Nidhi Dhyasanam. So this is with the intellect, and this is where you start to decide. And you decide that, okay, I'm hearing this knowledge, I'm reading this knowledge, I'm getting these answers from the app. This is it. And because oftentimes, at least this is my personal experience, I get to a point wherein my intellect cannot go beyond something, it cannot understand everything. And that's where I feel like, okay, I need to have the faith that, this is something that God has said himself. And beyond that, multiple saints have also realized this. So eventually, hopefully, I will realize it, but I will not question it if I just because I cannot understand, basically. So like having the faith that eventually, I will understand it with the grace of God and Guru really helps. And I think it goes a little bit into the aspect of surrender as well, wherein you realize that, okay, my material intellect cannot really comprehend everything. I'll try to get to a point. Like, for example, if you get to a point wherein we are a soul, if you're trying to figure out, okay, can I understand why we are a soul, it gets really hard over there, at least to me. I think that's something that maybe with more time you can realize that. So yeah, I think this is a tool that I thought was useful.
Thank you, Dhruval. And humility is the trigger as well as the foundation of this process. So we need a lot of humility to do that. And thank you for bringing that up. I know you had one more slide, but we have limited time right now, so we can continue probably in the next session on this one. So thank you again for this initiative, Dhruval. Again, you can create a thread on our portal that way people can go in and say, okay, this is what they're trying to practice, and it could make for a good collaboration as well, right? Especially we can help each other out with our experiences, the reflections, and the realizations as well as we continue to work through this. So appreciate that, Dhruval. Kudos. Okay, Pratyusha, one question, and then we move to our devotional segment. We can do a few chants and then wrap it up for today. Pratyusha, you had something to share or talk about?
Yes, Radhe Radhe everyone, Radhe Radhe sir. Actually, I was thinking that how long will it take for one to exercise the, that why power becomes solid in you. And I
27,
think
27 days, 32 seconds.
so I was thinking that it's like it could be a lifetimes of process, because if we are pursuing something for lifetimes, definitely it might not be intellectually very convinced. It could be there could be two Y powers, the material Y powers and the spiritual. That's why we keep learning, relearning, keep doing the same.
Yes,
That's it. Radhe Radhe.
it could be a multiple lifetime. Bahu Janmante, Krishna says as well. But the good thing is that when it comes to spiritual things, whatever we have gained here, whatever progress we have made here, Krishna is going to preserve it for us. And it's a huge mercy. Thank you. Yes,
Thank you, sir.
Lakshmi, real quick. You'll have to unmute.
Yeah, Radhe Radhe. Lakshmi ji, please go
Radhe
ahead.
Radhe. Yeah, Nitinji, my question is like every action we do in our daily life, that is there anything that both of willpower and Y power are useful, or when it comes a tie, whether we should do this or not, then only we should make our Y power strong and make use of that Y power to go ahead positively.
See, one broader thing is there, right? When you're trying to do something, of course, you need to be convinced that it is beneficial for you. That is why you're putting in efforts, right? The prayas, cheshta, endeavor that you put towards anything, you must be having a good reason. Is it good for me? Is it I'm trying to align to Guru's God's words? Is it good for me in long run? Some motivation would be there, right? And then you exert yourself, and then Y power would become stronger when you're trying to intellectually convince yourself it is important, absolutely important. Or you're saying chalta hai, hoga, oh, it's 50-50, either way is fine. So it depends upon how you convinced you are, that much weight or weightage your Y power would carry around that part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so that you have to do your pep talk to yourself only. It happens in sports all the time. Sometimes when you just give in your mind, it's okay, not a big deal, then you start losing. That's what I realize. I play games at times, right? So I realize when your mind is like, it's okay, you let go of it. But when you say, no, I have to, then you automatically, your body, mind senses, they start cooperating and you start putting in that diligence around that. So yeah, it really depends how desperately you want that and how much you are convinced internally how beneficial it is for you. Okay, now let's move to our devotional segment. We'll do sorry, you said something? Okay. I could lip read your thank you. Thank you for that. All right, let's do a few chats and then we'll wrap it up for the day. There you can bring it up. Maybe 2 or 3 hands we can take. It's already closing on 10:05, so go ahead.
Should I get started? Okay.
Yeah.
तीन रूप श्री कृष्ण को वेद व्यास बताय, राधे राधे। ब्रह्म और परमात्मा अरु भगवान कहा राधे राधे। जय राधे कृष्ण राधे राधे, राधे कृष्ण राधे। According to Vedyas, the Supreme Lord Krishna has 3 aspects to his personality: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagwan.
Thank you, Sandhya. It's an important verse where we will talk it about in our session as well. We have done it in the past. I'll bring it again. It's important to understand that God has all the 3 aspects: the all-pervading, which is Brahman; the localized aspect, which is called Paramatma; and the Sagun Sakar Swarup, where he takes on an avatar, which is the Bhagavan aspect of it. So all are God, and um, the bliss that you can get from each one of those can vary, although all 3 are God. And we will talk about this concept in greater detail as the opportunity presents itself during one of our discussions. Let's quickly take 2 more hands and then we'll wrap it up. Lakshmi.
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe
Yes.
Radhe.
तीन रूप श्री कृष्ण को वेद व्यास बताए राधे राधे। ब्रह्म और परमात्मा अरु भगवान कहाए राधे राधे। जय राधे कृष्ण राधे राधे, राधे कृष्ण राधे। जय राधे कृष्ण राधे राधे, राधे कृष्ण राधे। Thank you.
Very nice,
Radhe
Pratisha. Please do fill out the feedback tracker as well in the meantime. Lakshmi ji, last but not the least, please go ahead.
राधे राधे। तीन रूप श्री कृष्ण को वेद व्यास बताए राधे राधे। ब्रह्म और परमात्मा अरु भगवान कहाए राधे राधे। जय राधे कृष्ण राधे राधे, जय राधे कृष्ण राधे। Thank you, Radhe Radhe.
Thank you, Lakshmi ji, and thank you everyone for your enthusiastic engagement and turning on your videos. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We'll continue on this shloka and some more deeper discussion around the remaining friends that we need on this path. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. So stay blessed, stay devotional, have a wonderful rest of your day and evening. Radhe Radhe from my side. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Nitin ji. Thank you all. See you all tomorrow. Radhe Radhe.
See you all tomorrow. Bye.